Last week, we saw contrasting perspectives on the pasuk al pi darko. We had the Malbim's understanding that we're being instructed to educate our children in a way that's aligned with their natural abilities, their natural predispositions, their natural intellectual abilities, ways of thinking, and aligned with their natural skills and talents. On the other hand, the Reishis Chachma gave us a contrasting picture. He understood it not as instruction, but as a warning, not to allow the child to be educated al pi darko, the way he instinctually wants to be, whether it's selfish, whether it's immature, but rather we have to train him in generosity, delayed gratification, good midos. Gam ki yazkin lo yasur mimenu. If we allow him to follow his selfish, immature tendencies when he gets older, he's going to just follow that. It's going to be very hard to undo that education. And therefore, we want to make sure that we don't let him follow instinct, but that we guide him in the positive way. There's a similar approach in a sefer called the Menorahs HaMa'or. The Vilna Gaon adds a very important new dimension to this pasuk al pi darko. He understands it in the direction of the Malbim. However, he also brings in something that the Rambam talks about in Shmona Prakim. The fact that children, babies already, are born with personalities. There are little children that you could see from the beginning, they are type A behaviors versus other children, they're much more laid back. You have kids who are naturally introverts, naturally extroverts. You have children who are just naturally mechanical with their hands, or they're just naturally abstract and in the air a little bit. So the Rambam writes in Shmona Prakim that we need to develop balance, that while every child and every person has natural tendencies, instincts that take him to one extreme or the other, whether it's, for example, proactivity or reactivity, passive, active, type A, we have to be in balance. And that's where the Rambam spends a lot of time in Shmona Prakim talking about making sure that the midos are in balance and that the instinct doesn't control us, but that we're always able to bring an appropriate response to the situation. The Vilna Gaon brings in the Gemara in Shabbos that talks about children and people being born with natural tendencies. The extreme example used is that a person could be born as an ashidama. He could actually be what we would call bloodthirsty. And the Gemara says, don't think that because a person is born bloodthirsty, he's going to be a criminal. Natural tendencies create instinctual behaviors, but they can be directed through free choice on how we're going to use those instincts. And the Gemara, when talking about a bloodthirsty person, says the person could be a mohel, a ritual circumciser, a shochet, person who does slaughtering, or he could be a listim, he could be an armed robber. The armed robber is taking his bloodthirsty tendencies into a very negative direction. The shochet is considered neutral. The mohel is taking his tendency for blood and using it for a very positive experience. So the Vilna Gaon says like this. The Vilna Gaon says that every child has these tendencies. Chanoch lenar al pi darko. You have to educate him to use those tendencies in a positive way. Because if you just quash those tendencies, you see something that has the potential to be negative, and you don't find a way to channel it positively, you are going to quash it, you will restrict it, you will not allow it to come out in a negative way. And on the surface, that looks very good. I've prevented the negative qualities from manifesting themselves. Says the Vilna Gaon, the problem is that that's only working because you control the child. You have power over the child. But, says the Vilna Gaon, when the child grows older and you lose power, then he's going to have these natural tendencies surfacing, and he has no training, no ability to direct them positively. So says the Vilna Gaon, Chanoch lenar al pi darko, educate him in a positive way to use the derech, to use his natural tendencies. Gam ki yazkin lo yasur. Then when he grows older, he'll know how to use it positively. But if you don't educate him on using it positively, then when he grows older, he will have no ability to know how to navigate those negative tendencies, and they will in fact manifest themselves negatively. We want to add a couple of other dimensions. There is a Sefer Hasidim. The Sefer Hasidim talks about different curriculums that there are some children, and he mentions this explicitly, they're good in Gemara, some children are good in Chumash, and in our modern education system, too often, we try to fit everybody into the same box, and success in education is measured by one or two things. And the Sefer Hasidim writes explicitly, he writes that you have to identify what he's able to do, and many times you have to split classes, he writes, that not everybody can be educated in the same way, and if an educator sees that certain children get something quickly, or certain children have more of a tendency to a certain curriculum, then the school is required, says the Sefer Hasidim. The parents are required to be told by the educator that, we may need to split this into two classes. This is a big challenge today. It's something that needs to be navigated, but this is also part of Chanoch Lenar al Pi Darko. Next week, we're going to bring in just a few other aspects of education and bring it to some more practical conclusions.